I'm Charlotte Frick. My husband Neil and I are members of Foley Presbyterian Church. As you can tell, I'm not a Southerner. I grew up in Massachusetts, but we spent our married life in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But my parents, Edna and Stuart Sinclair, when my father retired, they moved down to Foley, Alabama, and bought a house on the Bon Secours River. And because they were active church people, they joined the Foley Presbyterian Church. So that was in 1971, and so from that time on, our family vacationed for 2 weeks in the summer, every summer, and then I would come down in the winter sometime, and we would be visiting with my mom and dad. But because they would go to church, of course, we went to church too, so we got to know Foley Presbyterian Church quite well all these years. And my mother taught a Sunday school class for many years there at Foley, and so of course we went to her Sunday school class too. So we got a chance to meet with many of the members and just sort of know what programs and what projects and what activities there were at the church. One of the programs that got started when Mom and Dad were there was Church Women United. My mother had been national president of Church Women United, so that when she came to Foley and joined the Foley Church, she introduced it to the idea to the women, and the Presbyterian women were very interested and helped to form this Church Women United group, which was all the different Protestant churches in our area. So black and white, all the different churches, the women came together and worked on projects and had meetings. And one of the early projects that they started that was still going on until just a couple of years ago was the clothes closet. And it was a very important project because it was one of the first places that had clothing for families that couldn't afford to buy their own clothing. And the Church Women United women operated that store for all these years. So we got to know a lot of the members that were active then. Some of the names that we remember are Flossie Kennedy, Dorothy and Stan Walker, Noreen Welsh, the Wards, George and Grace Ward, Becky Coggle Sheldon. Were all these were the people that were active in the church then. Well, by 1995, my parents needed to go over to Westminster Village, retirement village. So Neil and I decided we would buy the Foley home on the Bon Secours River and move and retire here part-time. And since we've been going to the church for all these years, it seemed pretty natural to join the Foley Presbyterian Church, which is what we did. It was an exciting time in the church. They were moving into the new sanctuary. We had mainly visited on the old church, but this was the new sanctuary, and it just seemed like there was always some wonderful projects, some great mission projects, some exciting activity. It just made you feel alive. Some of the things that were going on in those years, the Logos program for our youth. When Toby Mueller was a pastor, the associate pastor, she helped get it started, and Cynthia Malone was a driving force. She got it organized, and she was the director for many years. But the Logos, even though it was for our youth, it really involved our whole congregation, because you needed to have someone to teach, you needed people to help with the music, to help with the games, to help with the cleanup, and a big thing was to help cook the meals, because it was always a big dinner served every time. So it involved a lot of our adults at our church got to interact with our youth. So it really did pull the church together, and those were exciting days on Wednesdays when we had Logos. Another wonderful project was the Cursillo movement. Sanford Turner, when he was presbyter, introduced that to our churches. And we had an enormous number of our members went through this renewal weekend and then worked on staff later, and it was a very important part for us. And after the weekend, many of us formed fourth day groups that would meet regularly. We have a fourth day group from our church from our Cursillo time, and we've been meeting for over 20 years. mainly we met twice a month and study and fellowship, and it was very, very important for all of us. Another program that we had, which was quite involved, was the Disciple Bible Study. We had George and Vera Douglas taught this, and it met weekly, and it was a lot of homework, but it was a very in-depth Bible study during the week, and we really got a lot out of that. We had Sunday school. Sundays were, obviously we had church, but we had all different kinds of Sunday school studies or programs or lessons, a lot of different opportunities for people. We had Bob Malone taught they were called the young adults, but he taught that for many years. We had always, the pastor would have a Sunday school. I remember when Van Eddington had a class in the sanctuary, and it was very well attended. Sometimes we had Sunday school that was a subject, and they were taught in the sanctuary. George Douglas taught one on understanding Islam that was attended by a lot of our members. Another study was done by George and Neil, and they did science and the relationship between science and religion. And that was another class of several weeks, but it was attended by a lot of people in the congregation. I have served as elder. When I was an elder, I was chairman of the fellowship committee. And during those years, we had fellowship dinners monthly, not in the summer, but the rest of the year. And we would have mainly catered dinners and then have a program. But in the summer, we would have pancake breakfasts, ice cream socials, and we tried to reach out to the neighborhood. We had, in the spring and the fall, we would have a spring festival and a fall festival and have just lots of activities, lots of games and food and fun, trying to invite in our neighborhood people and invite them to our church. One time we had a program to try to invite people to come to our church in a real non-threatening way. We called it a Broadway night, and we had a young man that had a fabulous voice, and he sang all the different Broadway tunes, and then we had 4 different very special desserts that we were serving to them. So we were trying to make a very fun, entertaining night, but to make the church be inviting, and to make them feel welcome in our church. We had an elderberry program for many years, and that was for our elder congregation, and it was a very active group. June and Howard Frazier, but mainly June, was just a driving force for that for many years. And they either would meet in the church and have just a very light soup or supper and maybe play a game or a movie, or they would go on outings. But they were very faithful They were very faithful to their program, and I can see Sue Ann Suter every Sunday trying to sign people up for it. But it was an outlet for our elder people to have a fun time. Our Presbyterian women has always been very active and very important. We have circles as part of the Presbyterian women. In the circle, we have meet once a month during the year, during the winter months, and have a study and have fellowship. And each circle is a small group of women, and they always have a mission project every year, their own mission project. And then, of course, the Presbyterian women have, as a whole, have projects. But the circles are a great opportunity to get to know the women in our congregation well. It's a small group, and you meet together for 2 years, so you really get to know them. And then after 2 years, we change the members, so that it's been a wonderful way to really get to feel close to many of the women in our congregation. And we really have a lot of mission projects. those are just some of the memories that we have those are just some of the memories that we have of our programs. But it's just, Foley Church has always been just a very alive, exciting church that has offered Neil and I a chance to study and learn and increase our faith. It's given us a chance to be part of all sorts of mission projects, or just to be able to enjoy the fun and enjoyment of being with the fellow members. We feel very, very fortunate to be members of Foley Presbyterian Church.